Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Rama, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. As remembering something that happened way back when I had just moved into the Boston temples, 1971, and I was living in the ashram there. And at that time, there was an incense business. ISKCON had an incense business. It was called Spiritual Sky. And the devotees were hand-making incense. They would have the little sticks and dip them in the solution, the fragrances. And I remember strawberry was the big one. The quality of the incense, it wasn't all that great. The sticks were like really thick, so you had that burning smell because it was wood. And the oils, compared to what's available today, some of these really delicate, fine scents. Back then, it was pretty crude, kind of chemically smelling a little bit, but kind of sort of like strawberry. But incense back then wasn't like a very popular thing anyway. And mostly it was the weed people, the pot smokers, the potheads. They were the ones that were lighting all the incense. But we're making incense, and it helped to supplement. We'd go out and sell the incense along with the books and like that. So we were sitting on the floor of the Prasadam Hall in the old temple on Beacon Street. Great place. Used to be a funeral home. That Prasadam Hall was where they used to display the open caskets with the dead bodies in them. It was quite a place. Krishna. So we're sitting there in this Prasadam Hall on the floor, about 4 or 5 of us. Well, everyone was new. How old timer could you be? It was 1971. So we're all new people, new students, disciples, and we were bagging the incense, putting the incense into little bags. And there was a tape of Srila Prabhupada playing. At that time, we had tape recorders, so it was a cassette tape of a lecture Prabhupada had given somewhere. And we were listening and bagging the incense. But there was so much focus on bagging the incense, and there was talking and this and that. You couldn't hear Prabhupada. He was in the background. I could not hear him. I could hear that he was speaking, but I couldn't make out what he was saying because of all the commotion. Would they give me this bag? And how many did you put in yours? And what did you, it was the talking was going on, too much talking. And I remember I became very much in anxiety because I wanted to hear Prabhupada. I could bag incense and hear Prabhupada at the same time. I didn't have to make a commotion. I could do them both at the same time. But I couldn't hear because it was very frustrating for me. And that's 50 years ago. And I remember the experience vividly because I see it was a little indication of what was to come or to continue on and become even more pronounced. So everything in relationship to Krishna is good. Bagging the incense is good. It's like the utility principle. You're going to bag the incense, you're going to sell it, and it'll be for Krishna. But here's Krishna directly coming from the lips of the pure devotee. The Krishna is there directly in that sound vibration, but it's in the background. And the utility thing is going on, and it's making so much noise you can't even hear the actual transcendental sound vibration directly coming from Prabhupada. So I remember that experience, and I got frustrated. I got a little, and I said something. I said, "Be quiet. Well, can't you do this quietly? Listen to Prabhupada." And they got angry at me. Ah! Like I was finding fault, you know. Who was I to tell anybody anything? So, hey, my relative is here. Hello. I'm remembering some old days when I was a student in an ashram, a spiritual community back in 71. So I was having the experience that a group of us were sitting there on the floor bagging incense to sell to raise funds for them. And there was a lecture playing from our teacher. We had a teacher, Prabhupada, our teacher. And everyone was talking, you couldn't hear the lecture, and so I said something. I said, "Just be quiet, you have to listen. Shh, Prabhupada." But they got angry. "Ah, who are you? Tell us what to do." But there was one young man there, male student, brahmachari, I remember. He came to my aid in a rather indirect way, because he didn't want to get yelled at too, but he could understand, he sort of sympathized with my frustration that they were making so much noise they couldn't hear the teaching. So, and he said, in a like very detached, mystical way, so no one would turn on him and start to grouch at him. And he said, "Prabhupada is an angel. He's come to save us." It was the best he could do to try to give me some support. But I remember that experience very vividly. It was like 50 years ago, and it was a very vivid experience. And I see that not much has changed, except that it's become much more exaggerated. Because there's a lot more going on than simply bagging incense within this spiritual movement. There's this project and that project and another project, and somebody else's this and somebody else that, and they've got to do this, got to do that. It's kind of, so that was kind of like a little portend, I think that's the word, portend of things to come. How to stay fixed on the actual message that the teacher is giving. Why to stay fixed when all this other stuff is going on? Rah, rah, rah. So thankfully I'm in a position where I don't have to be involved in all of that. I'm not a student in the ashram anymore. I'm still a student. I still study the teachings of the spiritual teacher. But I'm not involved in this, that, the other thing, and something else, and I'm not involved in all of that. So I've been relieved of that, and not any too soon either. I mean, there's not all that much time left, you know, at 74, you know. But I was remembering that, and that strong desire to stay focused on actually hearing, and not just get caught up in all the to-do stuff. Because that incense business that we had, we were making the incense and selling it, it got sold. We don't even have it anymore. So that's gone. So how important was that? It's gone. Somebody else owns it. Somebody else is making the incense. But the message and the teacher is still available, and we will just take advantage. So that was where I was contemplating, amongst other things. So I'm chanting a little bit, and then I'm going to read from some of my teacher's book. It's a summary study of Vedic scripture, the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And first time successfully translated with commentary into English. I mean, it's not a new scripture. It's been around for like when was the universe created kind of thing. But available to the Western world outside of India not too long ago. So, I was going to read from that. But I have a little chanting to do first. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. And there's a little melodious mantra. It's said that the whole spiritual world is in this mantra. It's only 4 lines. But the whole spiritual world is in this mantra. So I'll try to chant it. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Chanavallabha Giribaridhari Yasodhanandana Rasishanarandana Yamunatira Manachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Paramajikacharya, Asa Sarasata, Sri Sriman's Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Vanchikapata Rubyascha, Kripasindhavyacha, Patitanam, Pavinibhyo, Krishnanabhyo. So this is the summary study of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a summary study. There's 12 cantos, and this is a summary study of the 10th canto. Hare Krishna, describing the activities of the spiritual world. In the first 9 categories, they establish that there is a spiritual world. So by the time you get to the 10th canto, you want to know, well, okay, yeah, you've said 9 canto. All right, so what's going on there? 10th canto. So this is after it's already been established that there is a spiritual world. So this is what's going on there. It's unlimited, the activities there, but you can get some idea of. So this is a pastime in the spiritual world of, it's called delivering the wives of the Brahmins. The Brahmins are priests, and they were engaged in doing sacrificial activities for elevation to higher planets. The spiritual world is beyond higher planets. It's completely transcendental to the whole temporary material world. But these particular priests, they were very much absorbed in improving life in this realm by going to higher planets. And their wives, they were transcendentalists already, but they were serving their husbands. And when the personality of Godhead approached them they took the food that was being prepared for the husband's sacrifices and gave it to Krishna. So this is what happened afterwards. When the Brahmins found out their mistake and how they had an opportunity for complete transcendence, and they blew it. Because when Krishna approached them, they said, no, go away, don't bother us, we're busy. But the wives were different. So when the wives came back from giving the food to Krishna and getting the special encounter, after the return of their wives from Krishna, the Brahmins engaged in the performance of sacrifices began to regret their sinful activities in refusing food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They could finally understand their mistake. Engaged in the performance of Vedic rituals, they had neglected the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had appeared just like an ordinary human being and asked for some food. They began to condemn themselves after seeing the faith and devotion of their wives. They regretted very much that, although their wives were elevated to the platform of pure devotional service, they themselves could not understand even a little bit of how to love and offer transcendental loving service to the Supreme Soul. They began to talk among themselves. To hell with our being born Brahmanas. To hell with our learning all Vedic literatures. To hell with all our performing great sacrifices and observing all the rules and regulations. To hell with our family. To hell with our expert service in performing the rituals exactly to the descriptions of scriptures. To hell with it all. We have not developed transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the speculation of the mind, body, and senses. The learned Brahmanas, expert in Vedic ritualistic performances, were properly regretful, because without developing Krishna consciousness, all discharge of religious duties is simply a waste of time and energy. They continued to talk among themselves. The external energy of Krishna is so strong that it can create illusion to overcome even the greatest mystic yogi. Although we expert Brahmanas are considered to be the teachers of all other sections of human society, we also have been illusioned by the external energy. Just see how fortunate these women are who have so devotedly dedicated their lives to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. They could easily give up their family connection, which is so difficult to do. Family life is just like a dark well for the continuation of material miseries. Women in general, being very simple in heart, can very easily take to Krishna consciousness. When they develop love of Krishna, they can very easily get liberation from the clutches of Maya, which is very difficult for even so-called intelligent and learned men to surpass. According to Vedic injunction, women are not allowed to undergo the purificatory process of initiation by sacred thread, nor are they allowed to live as brahmacharini in the ashram of the spiritual master, nor are they advised to undergo the strict disciplinary procedure, nor are they very much expert in discussing philosophy or self-realization. By nature, they're not very pure, nor are they very much attached to auspicious activities. But how wonderful is it that they have developed transcendental love for Krishna, the Lord of all mystic yogis, the Brahmins explained. They have surpassed all of us in firm faith and devotion unto Krishna. Being too attached Krishna, top of the hour. Cuckoo. Krishna. Okay, thank you. Being too attached to the materialistic way of life, although we are considered to be masters in all purificatory processes, we did not actually know what the goal is, even though we were reminded of Krishna and Balaram by the cowherd boys. We disregarded them. We think now that it was simply a trick of mercy upon us by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that he sent his friends to beg foodstuff from us. Otherwise, he had no need to send them. He could have satisfied their hunger then and there, just by willing to do so. If someone desires Krishna's self-sufficiency on hearing that he was tending the cows for livelihood, or if someone denies Krishna's self-sufficiency upon hearing he was tending cows for livelihood, or if someone doubts his not being in need of the foodstuff, thinking that he was actually hungry, then one should understand that the goddess of fortune is always engaged in his service. In this way, the goddess can break her faulty habit of restlessness. In Vedic literature like Brahma Samhita, it is stated that Krishna is served in his abode with great respect by not only one goddess of fortune, but many thousands. Therefore, it is simply illusion for one to think that Krishna begged food from the Brahmanas. It was actually a trick to show them the mercy of accepting him in pure devotional service. The Vedic ceremony paraphernalia, the suitable place, suitable time, different grades of articles for performing ritualistic ceremonies, the Vedic hymns, the priest who is able to perform such sacrifice, the fire and the demigods, the performer of the sacrifice, and the religious principles are all meant for understanding Krishna. For Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the Supreme Lord Vishnu and the Lord of all mystic yogis. Because he has appeared as a child in the dynasty of the Yadus, we were so foolish that we could not understand that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Brahmanas said. But, on the other hand, we are very proud because we have such exalted wives who have developed pure transcendental service of the Lord without being shackled by our rigid position. Let us therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, under whose illusory energy, called Maya, we are absorbed in fruitive activities. We therefore pray to the Lord to be kind enough to excuse us, because we are simply captivated by his external energy. We transgressed his order without knowing his transcendental glories. The Brahmanas repented for their sinful activities. They wanted to go personally to offer their obeisances unto him, but, being afraid of Kamsa, they could not go. In other words, it is very difficult for one to surrender fully unto the personality of Godhead without being purified by devotional service. The example of the learned Brahmanas and their wives is vivid. The wives of the Brahmanas, because they were infused by pure devotional service, did not care for any kind of opposition. They immediately went to Krishna. But although the Brahmanas had come to know the supremacy of the Lord and were repenting, they were still afraid of King Kamsa because they were too addicted to fruitive activities. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 23rd chapter of Krishna, delivering the wives of the Brahmanas who performed sacrifices. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. What is significant in Krishna consciousness is that God is not different from his name. So the sound vibration, Krishna, is non-different from Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. It's not a material sound vibration. It's not like Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. It's the name Krishna is Krishna. It doesn't designate something. It is. That sound is incarnated in sound. And that is also indicated in the Judeo-Christian culture, that in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. It's just one of his energies. Sound is one of his energies, and he can appear in sound. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So these scriptures, like the story of the wives of the Brahmanas getting the mercy of Krishna, and their husbands engaged in sacrificial and ritualistic performances, I mean religious performances, but missing the point of getting the mercy of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Still diverted by some idea of fruitive activity. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram. This gives us some indication of the dynamics and how the spiritual energies work. It gives us some indication. It's like a window or a picture into the, you can get some idea of how these energies work. You know, scientists are very eager to study how different energies work. Heat, light, sound, metallurgy, all these things. And they're gross energies. And now also turning attention more to subtle energies like psychological, the energy of the mind, how the mind works, those energies. But not getting much further than that. But beyond all of those energies is another energy. It's a spiritual energy. So these deal with these spiritual energies. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The spiritual science, yoga, spiritual yoga. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So, Krishna Chaitanya.